Good morning, everyone. I am Andrea Spencer, Vice President of Communications at ElderSource, and I want to welcome you to our session today, our third session of the Easier Said Than Done series, which is being put on by the Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida. So, if you recall, session number one was on managing difficult behaviors. Session two, 3 simple ways to make daily activities better for your loved one. So, in case you missed it, it's okay. We've got all the recordings on the Caregiver Coalition website. So, I encourage you to check out not only these sessions, but the ones that we've done all along as part of the Caregiver Coalition. So, I think you're going to find them very, very helpful. The Easier Said Than Done series was established by our coalition because we often hear from family members, they get the advice and like they roll their eyes, shake their head and say, yeah, easy for you to say. So we've picked topics that we feel are very important to you, especially when you're in a time of crisis and you need information and everybody's around there giving you advice. And hopefully, these sessions will give you some tools, information, and support on your caregiving journey. I wanted to go over a few little housekeeping items. The session's being recorded and it'll be posted on the website for anybody who hasn't been able to attend. And of course, for those who you are here, relax, you can take notes, but just know that you can go back to this recording and reinforce anything that you think you might have missed. We've got everybody muted for the duration of the session. We will be having a Q&A at the very end. But if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we will address those after Dr. Caulfield's presentation. We've got a number of attendees, and you know how life happens. We might have some technical difficulties, but we'll always do our best to make sure that we fix any issues as quickly as possible. And the other good thing is following the webinar, we will be mailing not only the PowerPoint presentation and the actual recording, but we want you to know that we've got some other resources for you that you can download following this session. The Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida, it's a program of ElderSource, and it works to provide resources and information to caregivers in Northeast Florida. We've got virtual events, in-person events, a quarterly newsletter, and if you follow us on social media, we've got some great information that is posted daily for the caregivers to give them some great tips and information. About the coalition, our mission is to collectively elevate caregiving and improve the quality of life for caregivers in Northeast Florida. And it's where all caregivers have the knowledge, and our vision is to make sure that all caregivers have the knowledge of and access to resources that support the caregivers and those in their care. Also, often I'm talking to caregivers out in the community, and so many times they say, I don't even know where to start. So we're hoping that the coalition and the resources provided by our members are places where you can start for help. We've got over 20 organizations and companies who work together to support and ease the role of our caregivers. The Caregiver Coalition, as I mentioned, is a program of ElderSource, and we are pleased to offer this to the community free and without any charge. All right, we've got our wonderful expert today, Dr. Christine Caulfield, and she is going to help us with strengthen your well-being while supporting others. And we know that your mental health is key. It's a foundation of you being the best caregiver you can be, and of course, the best way that you can take care of yourself. Thank you, Dr. Caulfield. You've got an impressive resume. You are CEO of LSF Health Systems, but you're an author. You've been on national TV, and you've certainly provided a lot of information and resources to people in need. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You let me know when to advance the slides, and everybody take some notes, and let's ask some questions at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm currently in a hotel room, and they're having a test for the fire system. So that's the noise you hear in the background. I have called and they said this should be stopped in about 5 minutes. So I do apologize for this distraction. Am I coming through all right, Andrea?
You are, you are, but guess what? We've got our first technical difficulty. So for some reason, we're here at the end of the slides. Give me a moment, everybody. Get a drink of water. I'm going to get a drink of water, and we will be back in. Right. Sorry about that. You know, you double check 3 times, and all of a sudden, it's not going the way you want it to go. All right, Christine, I'm going to advance the slides to where we have your beginning. There we go. Thank you. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And again, for those that might just be joining, there is a fire alarm going off in my hotel room here. I'm assured this will stop. It's just a test. So I hope it's not too distracting. And let me know, Andrea, if I'm not coming through appropriately. So I want to say a huge thank you to Elder Source. We are so, so blessed to have this wonderful community resource. These are the experts in our community. I want to thank Linda Levin, the CEO. I want to thank Andrea Spencer for her help and coordination of this event and for the privilege of presenting to you today. Next slide, please. So, caregiving. I'm preaching to the choir. Taking care of yourselves is the most important thing you can do. It's not easy for the caregiver, and it's not easy for your loved one that you're caring for. I'm sure you know the sacrifices and adjustments that you've had to manage, and including juggling work and family life to make time for these responsibilities. And I want to share a little bit about my own personal journey with caregiving. I'm professionally a geriatric neuropsychologist and gerontologist by training, but I'm also a decades-long caregiver in different times in my life. Starting in 2000 and year 2000 to 2006, I was caregiving, helping my mother caregive for my father and my grandmother. During that time period, I was a CEO of a large organization in Sarasota. They were located in Orlando, and my mother's health was declining as a result of trying to care for both my father and her mother. And so I made the decision that I was commuting back and forth from Sarasota every weekend to try to help my mother. I'm an only child. And so it became very stressful. I was married at the time, and it was very stressful on the marriage. I was working a pretty high pressure job and then commuting every weekend to Orlando. So that was very difficult. And toward the end, the last 2 years, my mother had 3 bouts of pneumonia in 1 year, but all 3 hospitalizations, and the last one was very critical. So again, I made a decision to quit my job and move to Orlando. So that's my journey with my father and grandmother. My father had vascular dementia. My grandmother had leukemia. Fast forward, my mother's health in 2016 began to seriously decline. So from 2016 to 2021, I was her primary caregiver. At night, I was working full-time during the day, and at night, I would relieve the caregiver that I had for her during the day and caregive her for her at night. And she had various bouts of cancer. So I share this with you to let you know that I have experienced lots of different experiences with caregiving, lots of painful choices and painful experiences along the way. And so I see you, and I'm hoping that this presentation will give some helpful tips as we move forward. Next slide, please. So, caregiving for an older adult, it can also be rewarding. So it's a mixed bag, and there's a lot of different emotions. There's gratitude to be able to give back to your loved one that has given so much to you, if that's the case. There's a lot of guilt of, am I doing it right? Am I available enough? There is anticipatory grief. And so what we know about grieving is that it's very exhausting and usually accompanied by depression. And so you've got that burden going on as you're trying to be 100% for your loved one. So this combined can really strain even the most resilient person. And again, it's so important to take care of yourself. Next slide. Okay. We as caregivers typically aren't good at taking care of ourselves. Most caregivers, the research shows, are typically the oldest daughter, not always, but typically. And we typically are the parentified child in our family. We're used to giving to others, and we often neglect what our own needs are. So we're less likely to go to the doctor during all this time. Annual checkups, practicing self-care, doing our daily walks that we used to engage in, having social activities that we always enjoyed. Those kind of things typically go by the wayside. And those are all self-care strategies that are really important to maintain. Next slide, please. So as we're navigating this very difficult journey, we're not getting our health checkups. Our stress is usually off the Richter scale. Our immune system is compromised. And so we open ourselves up for higher risk of both physical and mental health issues, sleep problems, chronic conditions like high blood pressure, and there's an even increased risk of premature death, particularly if you're caregiving for someone with dementia. Research tells us that you're at 13% higher risk of passing before your loved one with dementia. So very serious consequences of not taking care of ourselves. So it's not always obvious when the person needs help, the caregiver. And I know that you probably find that when people are calling to check in, they're checking in and asking questions about the loved one that you're caring for. How's your dad doing? What's the latest? Has he been to the doctor? Those kind of things. And rarely do people say, and how are you doing? And so our signs of caregiver stress are feeling absolutely exhausted, overwhelmed, anxious. We become easily angered or impatient. Our nerves are frayed. And we're feeling very lonely and isolated from others because our whole focus, besides caring for other family, our kids, whatever, trying to work, and then being a caregiver, it's just so much on our plate. So we have trouble sleeping, which absolutely exacerbates our feeling, obviously, of exhaustion and depression. We're feeling sad, we're having anticipatory grief, we're feeling hopeless, and we're losing interest in activities that we normally used to enjoy. Again, socializing, going to the movies, taking our daily walk, whatever was important in the past is suddenly not part of our lives anymore. So, some of the signs and symptoms: frequent headaches, pain, or other physical problems, stomach aches, headaches, neck pain, etc. Not having enough time to exercise or prepare healthy foods. It's just easier to get fast food, stick it in the microwave, and be done with it. Oftentimes, skipping showers or other personal uh, healthcare needs, brushing your teeth, etc. And oftentimes, caregivers misuse alcohol or drugs, including prescription drugs, just to get through the day, self medicating the depression, and just trying to get through the arduous task of caregiving. So it's so important not to wait until you're completely overwhelmed. Know the warning signs and take steps to minimize stress. And I know this is easier said than done. I know that typically caregivers have a real hard time asking for help, asking for what we need. We have always been used to typically the take charge, large and in charge, doing it ourselves, shouldering the responsibilities. And so we really don't know how to ask for help, what to ask for. And almost sometimes we feel like it's a sign of weakness. We should be able to do it all. And so we have that barrier of not moving forward with taking care of ourselves. Next slide, please. So, caregiving as a long distance caregiver, I know some on this call are doing that as we speak. So, you're not physically present in the town where your loved one is, but you are trying to do whatever you can in a long distance situation. And that brings its own kind of stress. Um, Guilt about not being closer, not doing enough, not having enough time with the person, worried about the person, your sibling, whoever it might be, that is the primary caregiver. You might even feel jealous of those that live closer and can do more. And so you feel very pulled that you are long distance and trying to do this. You're probably trying to fly there, drive there whenever you can. This brings a whole nother host, next slide, please, of issues. Financial strain, being away from work while you're taking the time to be with your loved one that lives away. So you need to be aware of when you need additional help and support as well. Next slide. So most of the time, as we talked about, when people have asked you if they can lend a hand, do you need anything? We automatically, I know I certainly did, thanks, but I'm fine. Thank you so much for the kind offer. No, I've got it all under control. It's not easy. You worry about being a burden. You might feel uncomfortable that you can't do it all yourself. But the research shows that caregivers, and myself included, wish they had asked for more support from family and friends when it was offered. And we have to remember that when people are asking what they can do, they want to support you. They love you. They want to feel needed. They want to feel helpful. So you are doing them a favor if they're reaching out and saying, may I bring over a dinner tonight? What can I do? Can I run errands for you? That makes them feel better. And the bottom line is, if somebody asks what they can do and you share a list of things that might be helpful for you, and they say no, that's their prerogative. They ask, you gave some suggestions, they said no, okay, that's okay. But when they're asking, the majority of people are very genuine and want to help you. Next slide. So, for those of us that aren't used to asking for help, ask for small things at first, if that makes that easier for you. Many large jobs can be broken down into simpler tasks. So you might say, that's so kind of you. I do have a doctor's appointment coming up. And if you'd be so kind as to come and sit with mom while I run to the doctor, that would be so helpful. Or that's so kind of you to offer to bring dinner. That would really be great, and I so appreciate that. So small things at first. Next slide. And if you're not comfortable asking face to face, send a text or an email with your request, and consider your friend, their skills and interests while thinking about how they might help you. If you have a friend that's a fabulous cook, for example, or you have a friend that loves to drive and run errands, whatever that might be. Next slide. And so understand again that people want to help you, they love you, that makes them feel needed, that makes them feel like they're contributing and reducing your stress. Here's some tips that might help. Be prepared with a list that needs to be done and let the other person choose what they'd like to do. Practice saying, thanks for asking. Here's what you can do if you're willing, and if you have the time. Be honest about what you need and what you don't need. Not every offer is going to be helpful. You might have a freezer full of food and you don't need one more bit of food to overwhelm your refrigerator and freezer. And be prepared for some people to say no and don't take it personally. Next slide. And who else can you ask for help? Well, your doctor. Tell your doctor that you are a caregiver. They can give you great advice about how to take care of your physical and mental health. Healthcare professionals will know about support groups, respite care, and other resources. Certainly, ElderSource is a wonderful resource to be able to help direct you to the many, many community resources that are available for you. And who doesn't need additional support during this very, very difficult time in your life? Probably the most challenging part of your life, frankly, is the caregiver journey. So who doesn't need additional support? So getting some counseling. If you can't make it in person, telehealth. Ask your doctor for referrals. I know, again, ElderSource has a laundry list of individuals, of counselors that are very familiar with caregiver stress and will be able to navigate and help you through this very, very difficult journey. We have an access to care line at LSF Health Systems as well. And it's free. It's manned by our clinical team 24/7. The number is on your screen. As Andrea said, she's going to be sending this PowerPoint as well. 1-877-229-9098. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Give us a call. We'll connect you to community resources as well and have a listening ear on the other end of that phone. Next slide. All right. Find small ways to lower your stress and boost your mood, and you'll have more strength and stamina to care for your loved one. And research shows us in next slide that just getting outside for 10 minutes under a tree in nature, maybe you have a trail, a walking trail where you live, just getting outside for 10 minutes boost those endorphins, those feel-good hormones in your brain that will lift your mood and help you manage your stress. All right, some other practical tools. Be active. Please get out and move. That might be walking, dancing, gardening, playing with your pet. Even short spurts of exercise can be beneficial. Eat well, my friends. Please, I know fast food is the most convenient, but eat healthy because, again, our immune systems are compromised. because our stress level is off the charts. And so we want to be sure to fuel our body with healthy foods and not further damage our immune system, and get 7 to 8 hours, 9 hours a night. Develop a relaxing bedtime routine and try to go to sleep and get up at the same time each day. And that might require a sleep aid to ensure that you are getting adequate sleep, because if you don't, again, it's one thing that really affects our immune system as well. Experiment with relaxation techniques, meditation, Tai Chi, yoga. Download a smartphone app with these types of activities. Carve out time each week to do something to change the set to enjoy that has nothing to do with caregiving. Keep up with your own health. Reach out for support. Slide. And take a break. Ask for another family member to come in or a friend. Hire an aide. Sign up for the older person you're caregiving for an adult daycare program, respite care for your loved one. A lot of times people are caregiving for a person that is a veteran, and they don't, or they're not aware of the wonderful benefits that Veterans VA offer and veterans benefits offer for your loved one. So please make sure that you know about those. And be kind to yourself. It's okay not to be okay. You don't have to put on that brave front, smiling, being cheerful. That is not realistic. So again, feel the sadness, let the tears flow. And we find that writing in a journal of your feelings, your caregiver journey, is very helpful. Talking with a trusted friend, trusted minister, counselor is also very helpful. Got to get these feelings out and express them. Next slide, please. Okay, ways that you can support your primary caregiver. If you're a long distance caregiver, but how can you support somebody that you know that is caregiving, your sister, your brother, whomever it might be? You can still play a very important role. Be sure to acknowledge how important the primary caregiver is in the person's life. Discuss and the physical and emotional effects that their caregiving can have on them, and let them know you know it's very hard work. Next slide. And you can provide the emotional support, talking on the phone, taking on specific tasks when you can, and even providing some full-time care for a short period of time to give that caregiver a break. Ask them what they need, stay in contact, and just listening. It might not sound like a lot, but it gives that person a place that they feel safe venting, and you can have a very important role in being that listener and supportive friend or family member. Again, we've gone over a lot of this of how you can help. Next slide. All right. You can work together to select a facility if that's needed, and that primary caregiver may need extra support while adjusting to the person's absence. If the person does need placed, and them now living alone, they've lost their caregiver status, if you will. They've been so used to being a 24/7 caregiver. Now they're not. And so that brings its own challenges. And I want to talk a little bit about placing someone in a long-term care facility. A lot of times there's a lot of guilt around having to make that choice. I know certainly with my father, we had to place him the last 2 years of his life because he was bedbound. He needed 24/7 care. His body was breaking down in other ways besides the vascular dementia, and it was no longer safe, nor we were not able to care for him, transfer him, lift him, etc. And so we had to make that choice. So it's a tough choice that brings its own stress. And so just be mindful of that. we have to remember that oftentimes that is the best choice for the loved one. That is the best placement in their journey, in their health journey. And it's good to have them in a place where they have 24/7 care and they're at a facility where people are familiar with their health issues, can lift them, etc. Next slide. So we talked about the big risk, greater risk, I should say, of people that are caregiving for someone with dementia. And the job is especially difficult because with dealing with someone with dementia, oftentimes that comes with personality changes, combativeness, um, unpredictable behaviors, etc. And it's like you're watching your loved one, they're still physically present, but you're watching them slip away, and not the same person that is cognitively capable of interacting with you. And that brings a lot of grief, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of fear, frankly, with any types of behavior changes, combativeness, etc. And I can tell you with my father, he was difficult before he got the dementia and was a combative person due to his mental health challenges throughout my mother and my life. And so oftentimes when people get dementia, their prior personality is often exacerbated and increases as they get dementia. So if you have a loved one that has been a mild-mannered reporter, a very loving, caring person, oftentimes that continues on when they begin experience dementia. And the opposite is true for those that have premorbid traits of violence, combativeness, etc. That's often exacerbated, gets worse as they get the dementia. Not always, but the research supports, generally speaking, this is not unusual. Next slide. So it's very demanding in that you might have to help your loved one with bathing, dressing, eating, getting in and out of the car. It takes a tremendous amount of physical strength and stamina. A lot of caregivers then experience physical health challenges, back problems, shoulder problems, etc., that require serious health care because now you have injury as a result of this. Next slide, please. And it is very, very stressful when your caregiver, especially if they've been diagnosed with with Alzheimer's, I should say, they recognize you one day, the next day they don't. They're asking questions. Who are you? Get away from me. I don't know you. And a lot of times those with Alzheimer's have the sundowning syndrome, whereas the day goes into nighttime, they have meltdowns, if you will. They have emotional outbursts, they're pacing, etc. And so these are very, very challenging for the caregiver to witness, to deal with. And it's so, so very imperative that you get that additional support that you need. Next slide. Okay, you might be feeling a lot of anguish that they're not getting the adequate care. You're not able to do what you really want to do. And again, we talked about that grief. And what we know about grief is that it's very exhausting, it's very debilitating, and it is usually accompanied by depression. So here you are carrying that extra burden of exhaustion, of grief, of mourning, of depression. And so that needs to be addressed for you as well. Next slide. So again, as we are moving forward with our caregiver journey, We may experience anger from the constant demands. We're at our last nerve, if you will. You might then feel guilty because you're resenting your loved one that is demanding all of this care from you. And again, risk for burnout, high blood pressure, sleep problems, depression, isolation, weight changes, and we talked about this, even premature death. So again, it's a silent health crisis, a health epidemic in our country, caregiver stress. Next slide, please. Okay, we talked about the logistics of how you can reach out for help. Next slide. Area Agency on Aging is a good resource. Next slide. Okay, local health system. And there is a guide for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid. It's called Guiding an Improved Dementia Experience, and you can get some help and tips from there. Next slide. And we also talked about other support groups, the Family Caregiver Alliance, working with a therapist, etc. Next slide. And to avoid burnout, we've talked a lot about this. Next slide. And I now want to talk about a topic that oftentimes is not talked about. And when you are caregiving a person that in the past has been difficult, abusive, a lot of trauma surrounding the experience with this person in your lifetime, and now you're suddenly faced for now providing care for this person. And a lot of times you may not have received a lot of trauma-informed care throughout your life regarding the abuse that you experienced from this individual. And so you still are harboring unresolved issues toward this person, unresolved trauma, and suddenly you're thrust into now becoming a caregiver for this individual. And so you feel like you're walking back into the war zone without any armor, so to speak. So next slide, please. The power dynamic shifts. So usually when you have lived with somebody or have somebody in your life that has been abusive toward you, they've had the power, whether it's a parent, a priest, whomever that or whatever that dynamic is, that person held power over you. And now you are facing a person that is very frail and fragile. And this can really, I don't know how else to say it, but it can really mess up with your head because, now this person is frail. They do not hold the power. They cannot exercise any type of usually physical abuse. They can certainly be emotionally abusive still, but the dynamics have shifted, and sometimes it can really trigger you to become that very naive younger person that's hurt and still has unresolved feelings toward this individual. Next slide. So here's some tips for navigating that. Don't feel like you should have healed already from this. And you should just get over it and you should let it go. You dealt with the abuse when they were strong and you were finding your way. And dealing with it now when they're weak and you're the one with power is a totally different mission now in your life. And it's very normal to feel these old feelings of resentment and anger pop up as you're moving forward with this caregiving journey with this person. And you're not back at square one. You're just facing a new kind of challenge now, which has its own very difficult overlays with the caregiving experience. It can trigger a lot of caregiver guilt. You might feel a sense of loyalty to the family name, or to be pulled to be the good person they never were. But remember, their current vulnerability does not erase the past, and you can have empathy for this person without bringing this person back into your inner circle. You might find that this is just a daunting task that you can't personally do in person. You can certainly help someone else that steps in as the primary caregiver. You can help with arrangements. You can help with support for that caregiver. But it's okay if you find that as you're working with this person, it just is not a doable situation for you. Next slide. Um, there's no one size fits all with this very difficult situation. Next slide. Okay. So again, your primary mission is your own survival and safety, for your own unit, your spouse, your children, and your own peace of mind. So, getting extra support if you do choose to um, caregive for this individual, you really need to get additional support through a trusted therapist, minister, whomever you can trust to guide you through this difficult journey. And you can set your own boundaries, your rules of engagement. Again, we talked about this. You can manage the care from a distance if that's necessary. Hire professionals, check the paperwork. But if it's necessary for you, stay out of the line of fire. Next slide. Again, we talked about the personality changes that come with dementia and that can exacerbate that negative trait that you experienced. Um, you have every right to retreat. Again, you can't pour from an empty cup, and it's so important to practice extra self care during this very, very challenging experience. There's a lot of talk about forgiveness. I believe very, very strongly in the power of forgiveness. Remember, it doesn't happen overnight. And I personally needed additional support through my journey of forgiveness. And so, setting appropriate boundaries are key as you're working through forgiveness, if that's the path that you choose to take. Next slide. I just again want to say, for those of you that are experiencing this on this call, I see you. I see the wounds that don't show up on an x ray. Whether you decide to provide none, some, or all of the care for this individual that was abusive in your life, please don't allow guilt or manipulation from others to dictate your strategy. You've already survived the worst of it. And the decision you make now should be about who you are now and your choice of the best way to provide care for setting and also while setting clear boundaries. All right. And so, for those of us, again, that are caregivers, we're doers, we find it hard to say no. We find it hard typically to set boundaries. I gave some tips on how we might approach this. So, when a relative says, for example, you're being cold, the family needs to say together, no matter what, remind them that you are taking care of yourself. A good response might be, I understand that family is important to you and it's important to me too. That's exactly why I'm setting these limits. I have to stay healthy for my own children and my own life. If you feel there's more care that's needed than what I'm able to provide, I'm happy to let you take the lead on those tasks. I've contributed what I can safely give. Next slide. All right, somebody says, it wasn't that bad. They just did their best. You can say, I'm glad your experience with them was better than mine. Truly, I am. but my experience was different, and the cost of being close to them is too high for me to pay anymore. I'm not asking you to change your memories, but I'm asking you to respect my reality. For us to have a good relationship, I need you to accept the boundaries I've set. Okay? And the next slides that I know Andrea is going to send to you are good for you to have. This is when somebody is saying you're being selfish for choosing distance or a limited involvement. Response, it's not selfish to choose not to be mistreated. I've spent a long time trying to make this work. It's only resulted in me being hurt. I've reached the point where I have to choose my own well being. This wasn't a snap decision, it was a necessary one. I hope you can support me in that, even if it's hard for you to see why. Next slide. And this is about guilt. I've shared my reasons with you, and my decision rather is firm. Continuing to talk about this only creates tension between us, and I'd like to keep our relationship a positive one. Let's move on to a different topic. I'm not looking for advice or debate on this right now. Next slide. Okay. Again, more responses. Why aren't you doing more? I know this is a stressful time for everyone, but I've looked at my life and my responsibilities, and I've reached the limit of what I can provide. All right. It's a firm decision. While I know it puts more on others, it's the only way I can manage my own health and my family right now. All right. Separating care from caregiving. You can make sure the person is cared for without being the primary caregiver if you choose not to. You can call social services. You can talk to the facility staff if he's in a facility or she's in a facility. You can handle the red tape from a distance, but you don't have to provide the bed baths or be the one they see when they wake up to prove that you've moved on. Please know that when life gets difficult and complicated, and I promise you it will, when you are doing caregiving responsibilities, you really need a place of safety with a professional. We talked about that, a therapist, a psychologist, and you need to have help in stabilizing your own thoughts and where you're at before you make any big decisions. So, again, getting that additional professional support is key. Again, caregiving, the weight of these responsibilities are overwhelming, and it forces you to navigate really intense emotional, financial, and physical hurdles while redefining your relationship with loved ones. So, care for you is paramount. And I love this comment or quote by Maya Angelou. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Next slide, please. So we can stop here and
Christine, that was amazing. And I really hope a lot of this information has resonated with our viewers today. And the good news is, as I said earlier, we will be sending these out. So those scripts that you gave and those last few slides, I think those are awesome that people can practice and get their voice in a place where they feel, safe and heard. So this is really, really great. We've got communication specialist Gabrielle Zaragoza from Elder Source, who's been monitoring the Q&A box. Gabby, what do we have so far? Anything?
Yes. So Melanie, she said, this is hitting home with me. Thank you, Melanie. She said, thank you for this opportunity. Will this webinar be available to watch again? Just as Andrea said, yes. And when you were talking about burnout, Joanne had a good note. She said, I just signed up for a 2-hour massage each Friday. It's a huge help, which is
oh,
awesome.
that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Good for you. Good for
Yes.
Let's see. So when you were talking about burnout, Miss Sherry had put a note in. She said, do you feel that paid caregivers have these same sort of feelings and challenges, or are the challenges you speak of focused on the family caregiver?
That's a great question. And I do believe that professional caregivers experience burnout as well. They're not as emotionally connected to your loved one as you are. They don't have the history, the past history that you do with that loved one, but they have their own set of issues that they deal with. Oftentimes, particularly, I know with my mother, we had a caregiver that was absolutely an angel. And for the last 2 years of my mother's life, I had this person with my mother all day while I worked. And then again, as I said, I came home and then I took over. Toward the end, we both were taking over at night, frankly. But this caregiver became very close to my mother because she spent a lot of time with her. And although she didn't have a long, long history like obviously I did with my mom, she became very fond of my mother. And so, yes, did she grieve when my mother passed? Did she have feelings? Did she become emotionally involved? She did. And also with our caregivers in nursing homes, for example, they certainly experience burnout. They are witnessing people's health decline. They are experiencing the combative and personality changes that often are directed to them because they are the ones dealing with the loved one in that healthcare setting. And so they certainly experience burnout in different ways that they experience the caregiving experience, but they certainly do have similar emotional reactions, stress, the stress of the job, and weakened immune systems, et cetera, et cetera. So, great question. I think caregiving, no matter what level you're doing it on, is extremely challenging and difficult.
I agree. And some of these caregivers, that even the professionals might be sandwich caregivers, the sandwich generation, they might be going to work, taking care of business as a caregiver, and maybe they're going home, taking care of their own kids, and it continues. So I agree. It can go in both ways. Family caregiver, professional caregiver. We have another question. It says, I am into caregiving for just about 5 years. My husband is starting to really feel the stress of our situation. It's affecting his reactions and stress level. How do you suggest I handle his feelings?
Yes, so I can really relate to that. um, it is a huge strain on, it can be a huge strain on a marriage. And I would suggest some marital counseling as you're going through this journey. I would suggest, getting help for the relationship. I would suggest expressing your feelings of gratitude for his patience, your concerns and your fears of how it is affecting the relationships, how important he is to you, and that you really suggest that uh, you both get some additional support for the marriage. Also, if he's willing to join a caregiver support group with you, that would be helpful because really he is caregiving. He's not the primary caregiver, but he's certainly trying to support you and involved in this caregiving journey. So uh, he needs additional support as well. And those are some of the suggestions that I would have for this situation.
Those are great. Gabby, anything else?
She says, thank you, Dr. Caulfield, for your responses. We actually have one last one. It's more of a note. It says, this really hits home. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm an only child as well, and my mother has been diagnosed with vascular dementia. We're still in the early stages, but I'm doing my best to educate myself, seek out resources, and prioritize my own mental and physical well-being along the way. Stories like yours are incredibly meaningful and appreciated.
Well, how kind of you, and God bless you. And I wish you all the best. And if nothing else from this presentation, it's just absolutely imperative that we do take good care of ourselves. And I will admit, I wasn't good at that. I really wasn't. And I paid the price. After my first bout of caregiving for my um, grandmother and my dad, again, literally feeling like I had to quit my job and move to Orlando because my mother's health was just spiraling downward. So that posed its own financial issues, obviously. My marriage was really strained, and that was not a good situation. And then, you know, following my mother's caregiving journey, my own caregiving journey for her, 2016 to 2021, after she passed, I envisioned myself, because we were best friends and so close, and I envisioned myself all my life thinking, I'm never going to survive when my mother passes. It was a great fear for me. And I imagined myself, in a ball of fetal position, sobbing and not being able to mobilize myself. And what I experienced after her death, because I did a lot of anticipatory grieving during this journey of hers, I was so exhausted. I could barely put one foot in front of the other. That was my overwhelming feeling. And it was at least a year before that heavy, heavy sense of exhaustion was lifted. It wasn't crying and, the typical depressive kinds of things that you might think about post death for a loved one. For me, it was overwhelming exhaustion. And I attribute that in part to not really taking the best care I could have for myself.
Wow. Thank
It's,
you for sharing that.
yeah, that's a lot of sharing and tough, being vulnerable in these situations to share with us today. So I thank you for that. And I hope people leave with the sense that I'm not alone and there are resources. So we're going to share some
Actually,
resources. Oh, did you have one
we
more?
got, yeah,
Oh, good.
we got
Okay,
another note.
cool.
Totally understand the anticipatory grieving when I was caring for my mother. Another person says, thank you for providing these very valuable webinars. It helps to validate my experiences and provide ideas for seeking self-care. I am still trying to navigate requesting assistance.
Mm.
And then last question, it says, my husband of 40 years, who is 25 years my senior, is the person I'm caring for. It's been 2.5 years and he's having a terrible time seeing me as a caregiver, not his wife. How do you suggest I navigate this?
Oh boy, that is a very good question. And, as a caregiver, our roles with that loved one change. For example, if you're caring for a parent, suddenly the parent takes on more of the child role and you become the parent. You're making decisions. You're providing care that you never did before, bathing them, etc. And that relationship dynamic changes just as it does with a spouse. So, depending upon the the type of health issue that your husband is experiencing, I don't know whether it's dementia or another physical health malady. It is tough to take on the role of caregiver for you and for him. He's not used to you bathing him, for example. He's not used to you making the decisions and calling the shots. So it's a real adjustment, not only for you to have these new roles and the power dynamic, if you will, or the relationship dynamic shift, but it's very difficult for him because he may feel like he's the man of the house. I don't know a lot about your situation, obviously, but just in general, if we're talking about a spouse, used to making all the major decisions, used to being independent, not relying on you to do the activities of daily living for him, and suddenly he's thrust, in becoming more infirmed, less capable. And what we know about men versus women and depression is men that are depressed, and certainly it's very depressing as we are ill and infirmed and we're losing our capabilities. Maybe we can't walk, etc., whatever the losses are. You have to grieve those losses, and that again comes along with depression. And men typically with depression, they manifest their depression in an outward angry way. They become very angry, sometimes hostile, verbally abusive, etc. Women with depression tend to have the more vegetative signs and symptoms of depression, crying, in bed, those kinds of manifestations of depression, as opposed to the angry outburst, and so on. So you might find with your husband that he is more angry than normal, and showing his frustration and targeting his frustration and depression toward you. So again, help for him dealing with his depression, if that's what's going on here, getting some help, maybe some medication for that, and getting some help for you, of course, as well as your roles have changed. I hope that's helped some. If there's other details you want to share or something that I didn't touch on, I'm more than happy to continue the discussion.
Gabby, was there anything else in the chat?
Nope, that was the last one.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Dr. Caulfield. Let's take the last few minutes here. I'm going to share these resources with you. And I really hope that they are helpful and that whether you need them now or you need them later. But there are some mental health resources. Of course, LSF Systems of our dear friend, Dr. Caulfield is the CEO. NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Health Illness. Here Tomorrow is based in Northeast Florida out at Neptune Beach. And they are a great resource. Aging True is a nonprofit organization that covers senior services in Duval and Clay County. We had a great suggestion earlier this week from one of our coalition members about Volunteers in Medicine. You can call them for some mental health assistance, as well as the Mental Health Resource Center. And there's a variety of locations. I think this one is particularly the phone number for the one on Beach Boulevard in Jacksonville. I want to mention some also available important resources for you as a caregiver. Dr. Caulfield mentioned the GUIDE program, of which ElderSource is now a provider, and that's Medicare's new guiding and improved dementia experience, and it offers coordinated care for patients and caregivers. It includes, starting in July, up to $2,500 in respite care, and it's free to those with a traditional Medicare plan. So if you have an Advantage plan, I don't think that's quite on the horizon quite yet, but if you are traditional Medicare, which is that A and B, this GUIDE program is available to you. The virtual caregiver support group from ElderSource, and there's a number of caregiver support groups around town. But this one, it meets weekly for about 60 minutes. It's facilitated by one of our staff, and it certainly is a great place for you to share, cry, compare, and walk the walk. You're walking the walk and you're talking the talk now with other people who are going through the same experience. So I recommend that. T-Care is specifically, it's the Tailored Caregiver Referral Program. It's all about burnout. You are assessed for what your stressors are. A care plan is put together. And if you participate in this program, there's two other bonuses. I think you get 8 free sessions with a mental health counselor, along with, I want to say it's 25 hours of respite care. These are provided to you through a grant from the Humana Foundation. So Elder Source, while we are a nonprofit organization funded by state and federal dollars, we seek grants and donations to do these extra things that are not covered by that funding. So I highly encourage you to tap into that. And you may be asking, where do you start for help with that? Of course, our helpline. It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And we have an email for our caregiver support team. You can email them. If you go to our website, myeldersource.org, actually, we just launched an updated website yesterday, and you'll see a nice big area of caregiver support, of which all of these things are mentioned on that website. So I encourage you to check that out. I want to give a shout out to the coalition members that we have. They are amazing. You know, Elder Source and other community partners, we can't do these things alone. So we have these people around the table giving us the ideas for the workshops, for the resources that people need. And I just appreciate them so much. If you go to caregivercoalition.org, you will see all of these with the link. Anything that resonates with you, you can click on that link and get more information about that particular organization's programs and services. So we've had 3 virtual webinars. We've got one coming up that's going to be in person. If you are a caregiver and you're dreading that conversation with your family member about, I think it might be time for us to consider other driving needs for you, to basically taking away the car keys. We have an expert from Brooks Rehab, and she is going to be talking about driving, making a difficult decision easier. It's Tuesday, July 14th from 10 to 11:30 at River Garden, which is on Old St. Augustine Road in Mandarin. In the email that I'm going to send you with all these follow-up informations, you'll have information about this in-person event, including the link to register. So we are looking forward to seeing some caregivers in person, and that's in July. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for attending today. Look for the recording and the resources that'll come to your inbox. And of course, share it with anybody you feel that might